Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I mean, so I'm a big fan of the Sichuan peppercorn. It's a spice that's used in Szechuan or Sichuan cooking, and it has a numbing sensation. So normally, the chilies that we all eat, the chilies that we all eat on a regular basis, kind of fake your nerves into thinking that stuff is hot, right? Like it's kind of a burning sensation. So in the same way that menthol uh, makes your cells feel like things are cold, uh, regular chilies make them feel like things are burning. So you get that pain sensation. With the Sichuan chili, the Sichuan peppercorn, um, the difference here is that the sensation it creates is a numbing sensation. So it kind of feels pretty weird. You, if you eat enough of it, your tongue goes numb, your throat goes numb, uh, causes the same sorts of physiological reactions in your GI tract as regular chilies do, and it's a very interesting sensation. Um, the flavor of the peppercorn is, I mean, it's peppery, right? So it tastes like kind of like black pepper in a sense, but it also has a sort of lemony citrus note, which is very interesting. Um, I went to Panda Express just now at the mall, San Francisco. It's not actually that easy to get um, Panda Express in San Francisco. So I tried Uber Eats. I tried Caviar. I tried uh, Postmates and DoorDash. Uber Eats had Panda Express available on the app, but it didn't have the new item, and none of the others even had Panda Express available. So what I did is I took a Lyft to the mall, went to the food court, got the hot chicken, and took a Lyft to the arcade. And that's where I am right now. I'm about to eat the hot chicken. It's I don't know if you can see it. Here's the whole plate. I got the chow mein and the sautéed vegetables. The chicken itself is it's just a chicken tender, and it's probably they probably ordered this from some large scale manufacturer like Tyson. Most of the fast food chicken comes from Tyson. I know KFC's does. Um, yeah, the Eastern Grease series. So I'm a big fan of Nashville hot chicken, as Wrangle here in the chat can attest to that. He's a big fan too. And the Nashville hot chicken is it's a food trend. It's been going on for a couple years, where in Nashville they have this very specific style of fried chicken, which involves regular fried chicken, and then they sort of dunk it after it's done in this oil and cayenne pepper mixture. So what you end up with is sort of a super oily chicken with some extreme cayenne pepper and some sort of brown sugar and sort of smoky flavors going on. And so what seems like is happening right now is that with this the Sichuan hot chicken, Panda Express is looking to get in on the action for the food trend of the Nashville hot chicken, and they're putting in a Eastern spin on it, which I'm all for. Uh, the I think my favorite part about the Sichuan peppercorn is that it's just something that you don't really encounter very often in your just in cuisine in general. I feel like if you don't go to a Sichuan restaurant, then you're not going to get it. I was first exposed to it at a ramen restaurant in Tokyo called Karashibi Miso Ramen Kikambo, and Kikambo is I believe the ultimate bowl of ramen, and it does a spin on the Sichuan dish dan dan mian, which is like sort of like a just noodles with ground pork and the Sichuan peppercorn. Very good. So this kind of fuses two of my favorite dishes. It's just absolutely kind of a dream come true when it comes to the food trends. I think the Sichuan peppercorn is going to be a big trend over the next few years because it seems like people just sort of they grab onto these ingredients that aren't really present in Western cooking. Then they use them up and then they're gone. It's like, or they're just integrated into daily life like sriracha is. Everyone puts sriracha on everything, and honestly, sriracha, I won't get into it, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a little sweet for me. Um, and yeah, so the tender is a bit dry. One of the hallmarks again of the hot chicken, the Nashville hot style, is that it tends to be very oily, and which is a good thing. Everyone on the cooking shows, they all say, fat is flavor, and that's because it tastes good. You're deep frying something, and the fact that it's been fried in the fat is what makes it good. So putting extra oil on there, that's what buffalo wings are, the butter and the buffalo sauce. It's just a winning combination all around. So this is looking a little dry, and what I did is they have an option at Panda Express to get it extra spicy. So I saw this in the warmer at Panda Express, and it looked like there wasn't enough flavor dust present on it. So I had to ask them, can you please get me the extra spices? And they dumped a big duster, big shaker on there, and just kind of coated it for me. So I'm really excited to check it out, and I might as well just eat it right now. Anyone have any predictions? Okay, my prediction is it's going to be good. Hmm. Okay. I got the. Yeah, that was a good tender. Gotta say. Uh, the numbing, it's taking hold, and it does have some some regular chili spice on there. So my first impressions are the tender is better than I expected. When I looked at it, I was like, okay, this is going to be something from like a low tier tender. I'm sure we've all experienced the sort of bottom of the barrel Cisco or Aramark kind of like ultra huge megacorp catering services that have the chicken tenders at all the events and stuff like that. Like Round One, the arcade that I love, they serve kind of the worst chicken tenders ever. And this is not that. This kind of reminds me of the new McDonald's chicken tender, which is pretty good. I think I'm going to keep eating. I'm going to make some more judgments here. Hmm. Yeah, I'm getting the build up here. It's a good sign. So, what do I have to drink? That's actually a very important question when it comes to the Sichuan peppercorn. So, when it comes to the Sichuan peppercorn, the uh, the numbing sensation that you get uh, is noticeable, obviously, just normally, but it really comes through when you drink something, especially water. So the taste of water with the Sichuan peppercorn is like a very unique thing that you can really only experience with this spice. You know how like when you brush your teeth and you drink water and it's cooler? This is like that, except it's a slightly different feeling that you'll never feel in any other situation. So I am getting it. It's a little muted, gotta say. I think I think my impression of this is that even with the extra spicy, asking it for extra spicy, they didn't go that hard with the actual peppercorn, and I assume it's probably because people would be a little weirded out about it. But it is on there, and it really contributes a very sort of noticeable lemony flavor. One thing that seems to be the case about these chicken tenders too, and I can't be sure. I can't be sure, but from what I noticed at the in the warmer, all of them were the shape of a chicken tender, a chicken tenderloin. So one thing that people don't seem to really realize that often, and I was actually introduced to this concept by Raising Cane's, uh, the all-time best fried chicken restaurant ever. I think we can all agree with that. But the tender is a real thing. So a lot of people don't realize that, there's a difference between a chicken tender and just chicken breast nuggets. There's a small muscle underneath the breast of the chicken, which has this like long kind of finger-like shape, and that's where the chicken tender concept kind of came from. A lot of places, including McDonald's, they sell things that they call chicken tenders, but are actually just breast strips, and you get you get a different texture that way. You know, the when you eat a chicken tender that's actually a chicken tenderloin, you get all of the muscles, like all of the muscle fibers are all going in one direction down the entire length of the tender. So the texture you get is an extremely like kid friendly, comfort food kind of thing. It just absolutely does not challenge your palate in any way, and in a good way, right? So I think a lot of people have this adverse reaction whenever they're eating meat. They're having a reaction to gristle and grit. And with a chicken tender, if you cut it properly, when you're cutting the chicken, you will get absolutely none of that. Maybe a little tiny bit on the ends, but you're going to be pretty satisfied the whole way eating that piece of chicken, because there's not going to be any changes in the direction of the muscle fibers. And a lot of times when you're eating chicken breast chunks from random places who have absolutely no sort of like quality in mind at all, you're gonna get these like chunks of the breast that are like going this way and that, and you're like, come on, like what are you doing? Like this, you you feed it to a kid and they're gonna spit part of it out because they're like, oh, this tastes weird or whatever, and even as an adult, you sit there and you chew it up, and you're like, yeah, I can deal with this, but you kind of don't really want to deal with it all the time. And long story short, back to the tender. These tenders actually appear to be tenders, from what I can tell. They were frozen, and I can tell that because there's dryness. I think it's pretty much a universal thing. Fast food restaurants, everything's frozen, right? Except for Raising Cane's. I gotta just go ahead and shout out Raising Cane's fresh, never frozen chicken. The These are frozen because the meat has been. You can tell that it's been sort of dried out by that effect of the ice crystals bursting the muscle cells, which we've all heard about from people like Alton Brown and things like that. On a scale from 1 to 10, how intense is extra spicy? Gotta say, this is kind of like I'd say it's like a 5. But I don't know. Maybe my 10 is just too high. Uh, I've had a lot of experience with spicy food, as some of the people in the chat, including Gates here, can attest that it's, it can go pretty high, right? Like I think this for the average for the average eater, maybe I would say 7 or 8. And I'm not trying to say like that I'm superior or something. It's just that eating spicy food was something I did, especially in my mid 20s. With Gates here, we would do all sorts of like spicy wing challenges. Where we go to the restaurant, and they're like, we'll give you the atomic sauce or the blazing sauce, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll just do that. And of course, you pay for it for several days afterward. And you don't want to be playing Dance Dance Revolution at any point during those 3 days. Uh, but these tenders, I think it's going to have no effect on my system whatsoever. Happy to hear. And but it is pretty good. I think the peppercorn, it's not it's not extreme, right? It's not an extreme sort of incarnation of the Sichuan peppercorn like you would get from a like very spicy Sichuan restaurant. But I gotta give it to Panda Express because they have, they brought this ingredient to the masses, right? You can go to Panda Express in a mall in the middle of nowhere and you can get the Szechuan peppercorn. So I'm really excited for that because that means that, I already liked Panda Express. Personally, my previous favorite dish was the Beijing beef. And I just really like the texture of the Beijing beef. And now I have yet another classic. I can just check out the Sichuan hot chicken at every Panda Express. Hopefully they keep it around for everybody. Um, I think I think it's good, and I'm going to eat the rest of the tenders and probably hang out here online and just chat for the rest of the evening. As far as drinks go, you've already seen the Aquafina. It's very good, very good bottled water made by the PepsiCo Corporation. Hate Dasani, just get it out of here. I've also got a Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Orange Vanilla, as well as a rare on the West Coast, a Kroger brand Dr. Pepper flavored seltzer water. Kind of incredible product. It was sent to me by the Maysville twins, some of my good friends who work at Kroger. They just packaged them up, sent them along. So, to answer the question, how many tenders were in the entree portion? I think there were 4 tenders, maybe even 3. Uh, Not that many, gotta say. I only got one item. I just got the tenders and some vegetables and the chow mein. So, I probably could have gotten a double portion of the tenders, but one thing I try to do when I go into these review situations is eat a little bit beforehand. Before on the way, I had a sausage McMuffin on the way home from work today, and a Krispy Kreme chocolate glazed donut. And I did that because I wanted to sort of like, I didn't want to be super hungry for a food review. And I do that because it's going to change the perception of how good it is. When you're super hungry, anything's really good. You're like, oh my God, I haven't eaten all day, and this like slice of white bread with nothing on it. It's amazing. Why is this the best white bread I've ever had? Well, it's because you haven't eaten anything, and you're a moron. So you got, again, yeah, Gates in the chat here says you got to build the base. You can't just go into it totally cold. You gotta have something going on first. So I plan on only eating the tenders. I'll probably eat the rest of this stuff later on. maybe refry the chow mein. I kind of feel like it's usually always a little slimy. So if I refry it, get some nice, extra fried flavors in there. So how would I, what would I add or change to the tenders? Well, I'd probably, if I wanted to build the perfect chicken tender, I would probably start. I would have to start with the never frozen chicken. You don't want to freeze it because it's going to dry it out. And then, you know, for these tenders specifically, I think that the breading is a little less it's a little less crunchy than what you would get at Cane's, but it does have a pretty serious crunch. I think it's pretty good. I would just crank up the Sichuan peppercorn just just totally to the max, like just dust it completely. And I think what they should have done is they should have done a sort of KFC style or the Nashville hot style sort of just grease plus powder situation. Um, Speaking of the KFC grease powder situation, the Cheetos sandwich going on right now at KFC, insane. I had one today, had one yesterday, and I had one the day before. And I gotta say, it's just kind of changing my life. I it's essentially the same thing as I was describing before, and with the Nashville hot, what they do is they take an oil and they take oil, basically just vegetable oil, and they put this Nashville powder in there, whatever's in that, and slather your chicken in it. And so with the Cheetos sandwich, if anyone has never heard of this yet, they do the same thing, only with Cheeto dust instead of the Nashville powder, and it's just it's just incredible. They also add Cheetos onto the sandwich. There's some mayo on there, and Wrangle here in the chat is saying that he didn't like the mayo on the pic, but I gotta say mayo, it's good, right? Like it's just a member of the chicken sandwich sort of the concept of the chicken sandwich. Mayo is just an essential component. I feel like you can't get away from it. And without that, this this Cheetos sauce that they have is just not like wet enough. So you would bite into it, especially with the Cheetos, which are quite dry. You'd bite into it, and you'd have a hard time chewing it up because there's not enough liquid in there. So I think the mayo adds a lot. Also adds a little acidic note, which is great. You can't really, like I said, you can't have the chicken sandwich without the mayo. Although yesterday I got my trip to KFC. So the Cupertino, Hollandbeck and Homestead Road Taco Bell KFC is currently on my shit list because yesterday I ordered a KFC chicken Cheetos sandwich, and instead of putting Cheetos on there, they added pickles. And pickles, yeah, okay, pickles are good. And they're on the Colonel Crispy sandwich, the Crispy Colonel sandwich, by default on the Georgia Gold, on the Smoky Mountain Barbecue, and on the Nashville Hot. It's definitely essential, again, but it's not supposed to be on the Cheetos sandwich. And I think what they did is they just probably ran out of Cheetos and didn't think I would notice or didn't think I would complain. And I didn't because, I go to that Taco Bell KFC a lot, and I don't want to piss off the people there. They have other shit to do. It's not their fault. But I'm not going to go back there for at least a couple weeks because, number one, they did that to me. And number two, they also don't have Baja Blast Zero Sugar, the new Taco Bell soda. They have the Mountain Dew Sweet Lightning. They don't have the Baja Blast Zero Sugar, which I'm a huge fan of. Lately, I've been going to Taco Bell and just ordering 2 large Baja Blast Zero Sugars, and that's it's so good. Did I try Sweet Lightning? I like it. The thing is, I'm a diet soda guy, so for me, drinking that big tall cup of sugar soda kind of gives me a bit of a reaction, and not not in a like a not in like a revulsion kind of way. It tastes good, right? But I kind of feel that there's something going on inside my like my organs. There's like an insulin response, which I don't normally experience from soda these days. So I think it's one of those situations where I would have to get used to it. I wish they had a diet version of that. It makes sense why they wouldn't. It just came out, and the majority of people, it seems like Baja Blast Zero Sugar is not doing very well because every time I try and order it at Taco Bell, they just I don't know. They're like, "What do you want? Baja Diet Mountain Dew?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want Diet Mountain Dew. I want Baja Blast Zero Sugar." They're like, "Let me see if we have that." So then they like go and look for it and they find it, and it's like, okay, so if you don't even know you have this, no one is ordering this, which means it's going to go away again. They had it 6 years ago. 6 years ago, they were testing Diet Baja Blast in the Central California area, and I was lucky enough to try it. And they just, just went away. I don't know what the deal was. Probably because no one was ordering it. So yeah, long story short, I did try Sweet Lightning. I didn't really get a lot of the peach note. I didn't really get a lot of the honey notes, but it was extremely peach flavored. It was a very sour peach flavor. Kind of reminded me of the sour peach rings or the sort of peach flavored Haribo gummy type situation. It was very good. Again, diet. I wish it was diet. So I don't have any napkins in here. I don't know why I didn't think about that. I guess I can just use my computer and not worry about the powders that are getting all over it. So I think for now I'm going to crank out. That's not really what I meant to say. I'm going to crack open this Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Orange Vanilla. Classic Chrono Trigger soundtrack. Move this camera a little back a little bit. Yes, there is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Orange Vanilla. And also Diet Coke Blood Orange. And it's a little confusing, but they're both good. I think Diet Coke is having some trouble. There was an effort. I think this flavoring effort was a campaign to get Diet Coke, to get the sales going again, because once they introduced Coke Zero Sugar, the sales of Diet Coke just kind of tanked, which makes sense. Even I've converted. I used to be a hardcore Diet Coke fan, and I was like, oh yeah, no, nothing. The Diet Coke's a perfect drink. Nothing better than Diet Coke. But now, I've converted completely, almost completely, to Coke Zero. Sometimes I get a Diet Coke just to have that classic flavor, but the Coke Zero Sugar, they really kind of nailed the Coke Classic taste with the artificial sweetener blend they made, which is Ace K or acesulfame potassium and aspartame, I believe. I don't think there's any sucralose in it at all. I don't think there's any sucralose. No sucralose. The Diet Coke's branding, the plain gray can, I think it looks cool once you already think it's good. But people have associated for a long time this sort of like diet drinks tend to have like a bland version of the original soda's sort of colors or something. Like, even the Baja Blast Zero Sugar they just introduced at Taco Bell, you look at the label when you're on the fountain drink dispenser, the button that you press is like a grayed out, like desaturated version of the Baja Blast, and I'm not sure if they're like intentionally like trying to get people to not drink the diet version. I don't understand why they would do that. You'd think that what they would want is for both of them to look cool, right? I used to really like the fact that Sprite Zero had a blue can, a bright blue can, and even though there's nothing blue about Sprite, I guess there's nothing any color about Sprite. Does Diet cost more to produce? I would guess that it does. Probably mostly because of the infamous um, corn subsidies that are given to farmers from the government. And I assume that high fructose corn syrup is just very cheap, and these artificial sweeteners, especially Ace K and aspartame, are synthesized in a laboratory. They're not extracted from they're not extracted from plants. So like something like stevia. Um, Even sucralose is also made in a laboratory. I believe by Tate and Lyle is the largest sucralose manufacturer, and the whole thing's very interesting, right? Like so with sucralose, they have it's essentially a sucrose molecule. The name is trichlorogalactosucrose, and it's essentially a sucrose molecule with some chlorine atoms kind of stuck onto it that sort of prevent your body from metabolizing it correctly. And it's kind of a similar sort of story with Ace K and with aspartame, where they have these sorts of like the molecules have these edges which are sort of like not conducive to uh, processing, to have them being processed like carbohydrates, for instance. Like aspartame degrades into some amino acids, which is the degradation of the aspartame into the amino acids is something that you can feel in your mouth when you taste the aspartame. It kind of gives it a little bit of a proteiny taste. And if you're familiar with the taste of MSG on its own, and if you're not, you can go to the store and buy some Accent or something like that, and just get some MSG and taste a little bit of that. And it has sort of like salty and watery taste, right? Like it tastes watery somehow. And aspartame does the same sort of thing because it sort of breaks down at a very low temperature, including your body temperature. What happens is that it starts breaking down while it's in your mouth, which causes what people say the aftertaste, which personally it's like, okay, like you're what's wrong with an aftertaste? You like the before taste. Is there something like inherently bad about an aftertaste? Whatever. Either way, aspartame's good. I think I should just stop talking. Maybe not. That's what I'm here for. Who's in the chat? Okay. So, yeah, I just want to shout out everybody who's in the chat. Ash and Omar, Anton, Ian. We got www.youtube. We've got Wrangle. We've got Gates. Yeah, aspartame's great. What's wrong with it? It's been in food for years and years and years. You know? I mean, personally, I think the question of whether these things are good for you is a completely different matter from whether they taste good or not, or whether they're interesting. And I think taste good, even itself, sort of betrays a bit of judgment that I don't like to place on, really anything. I think that it's not really about whether it's good or bad. It's about whether it's interesting and new. And I think when you have ingredients, especially like the Sichuan peppercorn, it's interesting, right? Like there's nothing good about your mouth going numb. There's nothing bad about it going numb either, right? But it's just another way to experience the sort of, you know, the aesthetic qualities of the food that you're eating. I think artificial sweeteners are a very similar thing where you have this new thing that was produced by humans. You know, you have sugar. Sugar already existed. We know what sugar tastes like. What if we invent something that's kind of like sugar but not sugar? Now you have two things. You have sugar and the new thing that's kind of like sugar but not sugar. So two things is way cooler than one thing. And I have a lot of arguments, maybe not arguments, maybe a little more like discussions with people who, you know, I'll be at work and they'll see me drinking diet soda and like, how can you put that in your body, or something like that, and while they're just chugging coffee all day, and I'm like, well, you know, it's not about whether it's good or bad for me because number one, it's not the jury's still out, right? Um, Even if the jury is not still out, I'll probably just ignore whatever gets decided anyway. Do I like coffee? Coffee's I'm I'm trying to get into it. I'm trying to get into it. It's difficult because I spent my whole life drinking soda, and coffee is extremely intense as a flavor. I think it mostly tastes like burnt stuff. And not in a bad way, right? Like when you cook food, you burn it a lot of times at least, especially if you're grilling something, and the flavors that you're tasting are coming from these molecules that have been changed, burned essentially, into changed from what they were into something new. And that's that's an interesting taste, right? So with coffee, I think that you get a lot of those kinds of notes, and there's a lot of this, a lot of the sort of cooked notes. There's a lot of the sort of the burnt kind of notes, and again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very concentrated in one sort of zone, right? You know, it's also very complex to the extent that, you know, drinking something like soda is not. I think you have uh, even with cola, and cola is a very complex soda. You know, if you take with a simple soda like orange soda, for instance, orange soda is carbonated water, probably some sugar, and some orange flavoring. It's very simple, you know. Uh, and I think one of the reasons why orange soda is not as popular as cola is because cola is a much more complex taste. It's very hard for most people who haven't researched or haven't, you know, spent a lot of time thinking about the way things taste. It's very hard for most people to taste, you know, a cola drink and explain what it is about that tastes like this or that. You know, like with Coke and with Pepsi. I mean, I think most people can identify something like cinnamon. There's nutmeg. There's lemon and lime, vanilla, flavors like that. You know, with Dr Pepper, you they turned up the sort of the cherry notes and things like that. And there's all sorts of ingredients, spices, the cardamom, uh, you know, things like that that go into these that go into cola to sort of make it a very complex taste that you have a very hard time breaking apart in your mind. And I think when you build something that's complex, people like it and they keep coming back to it over and over again to try and their minds are trying to pick it apart. I think that happens with music. You know, if you have a very simple song like Old MacDonald or something, you know, it's kids like it because they're dumb and they don't know any better, right? Like their neural networks haven't developed to sort of like, you know, crave novelty. So what they hear is this, you know, extremely boring melody, and they're like, "Oh, that's great." Old MacDonald, you know, it's gotta say, uh, not one of my favorite songs. It's a classic, but it's not up there. But you have, nowadays you have, you know, songs, you have types of music like jazz, or you have, even in EDM nowadays, you have players doing, you have, you have producers making things like the wall of sound technique, popularized by Phil Spector and back in the days when pop was first being developed. And what they do is they sort of mix instruments together to the extent where, you can't really tell what anything is. So it has this psychological effect on you, like a cola. And I think coffee, long story short, has a similar effect, except it's so much more intense to me than cola that I'm almost sort of overloaded with it. And I taste coffee and I'm like, it's too complicated. I can't understand it. So I think iced coffee helps. When something is cold, your mouth is numb, and it sort of deactivates some of the sensory uh, sort of bandwidth that you have, so that you can kind of enjoy parts of it that you know on their own that might sort of clash together when it's hot. Big fan of cold brew. I like the nitro cold brew they have at work, and I just like the texture. Mouth is an information superhighway. It is, and cold things, obviously they turn it down a little bit. And yeah, we got nitro coffee these days in Silicon Valley. I don't know what it is about. I mean, work. They just have a fancy cafe, and basically it's just cold brew with infused with nitrogen. It kind of gives it a frothy kind of texture. Yeah, it's good. I like it. So about the Sichuan pepper. Let's read about it here on Wikipedia. I'll move my mug over here. The Sichuan pepper looks like a. I can't read those characters. This looks like it's pronounced Hua Jiao or something like that. It has a unique aroma and flavor that's neither hot like chili peppers nor pungent like black pepper. Instead, it has lemony overtones. It creates a tingly numbness. In Mandarin, known as mala, due to its hydroxy alpha sanchool molecules. Sanchool. So in Japanese, uh, this peppercorn is known as the sancho pepper. Pungent. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the word pungent. I don't think it really means anything. And the reason I think it's doesn't mean anything is because it's used for a few different things which to me don't seem to have anything in common. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know yet, and I'll learn it eventually. But people describe as pungent. They'll describe things like, um, hmm, I was thinking of piquant, or yeah, but those aren't really the same thing. Yeah, I don't know what would be pungent. Is black pepper pungent? I would say it has a dull, kind of earthy taste. Mushrooms, are mushrooms pungent? I don't think so. Garlic as pungent? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I think pungent to me is one of those words like people used in the 1600s or something, whenever they were talking about food, and they were just morons back then. They had like they were just eating like potatoes and meat, and they had no idea what they were eating. So they just come up with these like four different words that they use to describe everything. Oh, this sweet garlic is so. It's like, what? Sweet? Can't use sweet for everything? This mushroom ketchup is finely pungent. Yeah, they said stuff like that. I don't think they knew what they were talking about. Pretty much all good food was invented in the past 100 years. Yeah, 1600s people did not have Doritos Locos Taco. They had no sort of flavor dust whatsoever. And the flavor dust that they did have, they were fighting over so hard that, they conquered the world because they were trying to get their hands on more flavor dust. Yeah, so yeah, what's going on here? What does this look recently harvested? Looks like a looks like a road. Hmm. Sichuan pepper, Chinese pepper, Japanese pepper, aniseed pepper, sprice sprice? What the fuck is that? Chinese prickly ash, Hagara, Sancho, Nepal pepper. They're just putting any kind of Asian country on. Yeah, I don't know. You can't just do that. Prickly ash. Okay. Oh, here it is. Here's the hydroxy alpha sanchool. As if this means anything to anyone, you know. This probably means something to somebody. Lightly toasting the tiny seed pods. That's what I do. I sort of put them in the pan, a hot pan. Put the peppers in there and then transfer to a grinder or just mash them up with whatever cooking utensil. Also available as an oil. Maybe they should have used that oil on these tenders. If you want a good Sichuan pepper oil, what is Sichuan chili crisp? Yeah, it was a Kickstarter project actually, which I backed, and it's very good. Uh, Big fan. I've been cooking with this a lot, so if you want to check it out, it's what is it? Yeah, flybijing.com. Yeah, it's pretty good. I really like the Sichuan chili crisp. What I've been making with it are dan dan noodles, dan dan men. I use a sort of fresh um, fresh ramen noodles, ground pork. I sort of saute the ground pork with some chopped mushrooms and the Sichuan chili crisp or just regular Sichuan peppercorns, and some doubanjiang, which is a sort of fermented Chinese black bean paste. And put that in the ground pork, and then once you're done with the ground pork mixture with the Sichuan peppercorn, you can mix it up with some noodles and some cilantro. Very good. It's probably my favorite dish of all time.